I was the black cab driver, the Cockney cliche, and I used to tell my little adventure stories when I was a younger man going out and partying or whatever to people in the back of the cab, and I used to finesse and harness them, and that got better tips, and it was fun.
Entertaining, certainly made me laugh over the years.
Oh no, that's definitely part of it. So I'm playing to people's prejudice in a way. But oi, here we go, and I'm playing along, and it's called Blimey Governor.
He's one of the most intelligent people I know.
She loves me.
It's true.
It's got a weird thing with this pareidolia, is seeing faces in shapes and patterns. And there's something nice in that because it's about making a sense. Even though the pictures I take on nonsense in a way.
We've got a piece to go with it, so let's just hear it. Listen up, people.
Styrofoam Steve.
KJ Podcast, time to listen to what's going on. KJ in the house, talking about it. KJ.
Hey, I'm Karen Jones, aka Kaz, and this is the KJ Podcast. My guest today is a long-time friend. We've known each other for over 40 years, definitely, since primary school. He's not only a friend, he's also a member of my family. He's the father to my niece. But I want to talk about him here in a professional capacity. He's a photographer taking amazing photographs with his phone. He's had 2 exhibitions in a local library. In the last 2 years, he's become a spoken word artist, performing over 302 performances. I'm super pleased, super proud and humbled to be sitting in the presence of Micky Adshead. Thank you, Micky.
Thank you, Kaz.
I have my book here with my questions. And I suppose we're going to start with the whole spoken word. What inspired you to start writing? Just start writing, because I know you've been writing for years and years and years and years and years. But to then start writing and think, okay, you know what? I'm going to perform this.
Well, I've been writing a bit in my head and never really properly put it together. And then it was through COVID and lockdown. I got into I found something after that and went and watched some comedy. Started to think about writing jokes. There was a little place in West Ham called Arch One. And through being encouraged and some nice supportive people there, I found that actually my jokes weren't that funny, but they were cleverer or wordier. That sped into writing words. And then, to be honest, the jolt of my dad dying, and I was not in a good place mental health-wise, but getting very low and bottoming out in a sense. I just needed to do something, and it kind of popped out of me, and it's been a bit of an epiphany, to be honest, and has changed my stuff up from not being in flow with myself. This is something I should have always done. I've been a bit embarrassed about it, I suppose, because of the background I come from, and no support with doing that. And now having that not having the confidence to do it, and now having that. So life's not just gone magic, but this thing is wonderful.
Yeah, so I suppose it almost sounds like it was like healing for
absolutely.
You in some way. Okay. With your writing and also photography, which we'll talk about a bit later, there's very much like a narrative, storytelling. And so I want to move on to what has shaped that sort of style of writing, that it's telling a narrative, it's telling a story. How did that sort of come about?
Well, I suppose before I was writing, I was the black cab driver, the Cockney cliche, and I used to tell my little adventure stories when I was a younger man going out and partying or whatever to people in the back of the cab, and I used to finesse and harness them, and that got better tips, and it was fun to do and pass the journey. And from doing that, I think that became an idea of telling little incident stories. And then that has moved on perhaps to, I'll tell a whimsical story from some of the photographs. But within that, there's maybe a psychological parable or an analogy or a metaphor or something else beyond this silly little kid's book story or a whimsical creature. I'm trying to imbue it with something else, I guess, and there's a story behind that. That appeals to me, I guess.
But yeah, I hear that, and I'm also going to come with a but. I also think, and totally agree with you, that your sort of Cockney geezer is a way of expression and certainly entertaining. Certainly made me laugh over the years.
Oh no, that's definitely part of it. So I'm playing to people's prejudice in a way. But oi, here we go, and I'm playing along, and it's called Blimey Governor. And there is a bit of that in me because I'm from here, and that's part of the people that I grew up with. I heard tell stories, told them in that fashion. But at the same time, I'm trying to go, mind your prejudice as
absolutely,
well.
Absolutely, 100%.
So it's that balance. And I come out and I bring it on.
Yeah.
And I play it. So it's a complicated little game, but I think it kind of works. I'm finding my way with that shtick of a character that I have as a spoken word person.
He's one of the most intelligent people I know.
She loves me.
It's true.
You can talk.
I suppose your first the first time that you performed, what was that experience like for you?
Well, that was, I did a performance with the lady who was there the other week. It was a place down, I'm forgetting the name now, it's really annoying me. It was, I found one open mic spoken word, just got me courage up to, right, I've wrote a few bits, I'm going to go and do this thing that I've practiced. And when I got there, it was an all-black spoken word, which, as you know, can be a all-black spoken word, can be a, don't laugh like that.
I'm not laughing, I'm choking on my water. Honestly,
can be a very different,
you
know, it can be a very different.
Absolutely.
And as my first time, I was like, hey, but I grew up with the children of wind rushing through my hair around here, so I'm, you know what I mean, I'm from here, innit?
Yeah.
And it was fantastic, and it was wonderful. And to be fair, it went, there were a couple of headliners. I felt like I went, the same polite, nice as Paul's first bright light in my face. It was, I've done it, fantastic. But one man, so listen people, if you feel something and you watch anyone do creative, go and tell that person, because you can make a difference between them doing it or not. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this guy. Duncan came up to me at the end and just went mad on me. Said loads of fantastic mad, shaking, brother, I just had to come and say, right? He said, like, oh, you should be like doing this, you should be in Top Boy, blah, blah, blah. He was giving me all this stuff. I walked out of there just on a cloud. We had a lovely little 15-minute chat, and I thought, I can do that. Because if I've affected one person strong, even if the guy's crazy, man, I've made a connection.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And this feels essential to it, making a connection thing. And like, that was, I floated home on a cloud thinking I can be one of the people that does this. And I just thought I was a person that watched people do things. That was quite a crank up, to confidence.
Yeah, that is what you need, I think, sometimes. And it takes that one person who, they don't know you from Adam. So when I was thinking about setting up Bennu, whilst family and friends were saying, yeah, go for it, Kaz, go for it, I then met someone, and when she ended up being my business mentor, and is amazing at being my business mentor, but with the idea, and when somebody's eyes light up in their body language, and that was the sort of kick up.
And it's not your family who you know are going to be supportive anyway. So while it's wonderful, if someone else gives you that extra, if someone out of the family believes in it, then
that's right. And so therefore Duncan, what he's done for you as this complete stranger, saying, mate, do you know what, you've got some amazing or brilliant talent that you've got a gift, you've got to use it, you've got to share it. Yeah, it's
not just you saying it, because you're massive with that as well.
Oh gosh, and I'm so well, everything I said from when you were starting and the pieces that you were showing to me was 100% from my heart and true, that you really needed to kind of put yourself out there. And hey, look how many performances you've done in 2 years, over 300. It's massive. So I want to move on to your photography now, which is just, honest to God, Micky, it's a unique style. But what's interesting is now you've got me and other people that I spoke about. When I first said, okay, can I see a kind of image in that? So we'll show some of Micky's artwork shortly. But I just want to ask you, what is that unique photography, those sort of abstract images that are also telling a story? Where did you get that idea to think, okay, I'm walking along, or I'm looking out my window, or I'm in my kitchen frying some eggs and bacon, and you're taking images?
I see a couple of Victorian girls in there, bacon bonnets / schmuck / sleeping bags. Yeah, it's just about looking and looking and looking. I think my dad used to, he was just a curious fella who would look, and talk about, look up when you're walking up the city and see the tops of the buildings, boy, and just those things. I'm curious and I like looking. And I just got a weird thing with this pareidolia, this seeing faces in shapes and patterns. And there's something nice in that, because it's about making a sense. Even though the pictures I take on nonsense in a way, they're whimsical little creatures that don't exist. Why can't I write a story about them and make them exist? So I like the fact that it gives them this other world to go into. And it's also driven by the idea of people wanting to make meaning out of things. We've got a human drive to make sense out of the big stuff, or just situations in our life. And this is like, can you see what I'm saying here? So it's a visual representation of making sense out of what might be some rubbish or a sheet or a bit of bacon frying in a pan. Or I like the idea of that. And I've always had a weird knack for it, and I've lent into it. I like it. It gives me... I try to make pictures that if I walked into a gallery, that's what I'd like to see. That's all the images that I've ever absorbed and seen, they're mushed up in here somehow, and they're created an aesthetic that is what comes out of me when I'm looking at things.
Yeah.
I think.
No, it's fantastic. And what's also utterly, I think, genius is it's all done on your phone.
because I'm low tech big time from necessity.
No,
I'm
you cannot be as low
stuff.
tech as me. Definitely
I'll
not.
send you
I
set
am
up,
the
you've got
worst. I am the worst tech person. In my book, actually, there's always a little saying, my little book of wisdom. And as I'm passing, before I flip over to the next page, it says here, if you haven't found it yet, keep looking.
It took me a while, so yeah.
But you have now. So your approach to photography, I'm just wondering, is it similar to spoken word?
Okay, so it's zero tech. It's like you say, my phone. It's about capturing what I can see with my eyes. So it's similar to the words in that I try and look and see something different to what someone else would see. You were talking about unique earlier on. I've got a bit of an idea for myself as if I, not what an artist should be, I might tell people, but if I wanted to be a creative person, that find your unique thing and try and offer and share that to people seems to me to be the way to be an artist. You know, there's a lovely word, haestity, that my mate gave to me. That's the essence of something that makes it unique. And I've had a couple of encounters with people who spoke about that idea of finding what your essence is and expressing that as a way of being a creator. Quentin Crisp, the naked civil servant played by John Hurt, he spoke about that. I saw a little clip of him when I was 14, and I remember that clip. And then I remembered this word that a friend gave me 20 years later, and they come together to lead me to find the essence of you that's unique, whatever that is, and express that. That's your best chance of making art that will be interesting to people. It's far away as you can get from copying or being influenced. But of course, we're influenced by everything. But the way it's come, all the influence that's come into me, all the images, all the data that I've received, I try and express it in a way that makes something that I like.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And I'm going to apologise for my fan in the background, that sort of zzz noise, but hey ho, it is what it is. That time of life, I've now turned it off. All right, so we are going to talk about your photography, and we're going to sort of just show a little image.
Okay, so this is Styrofoam Steve, and we're going to play the piece that goes with it. But basically, I was walking down past the McDonald's at Forest Gate, just going around my daily life, but with this stuff tuned in all the time. So I want to find these little, because they're everywhere. Once I've got the freedom to look and walk, and it was some crushed rubbish in the gutter. But this, and the lovely part of it is that, and this is like random and chance, and it's grasping that and making something with fate. That this leaf, like I don't make these images, I find them, that's important to me. This leaf had landed there in the place of his heart, and then all of this just says something to me as a person walking down the street. And now I can make something out of that and tell that story, and it becomes almost semi-autobiographical as well. That's what happens in that moment for me. I just like doing that. It's quite simple, really, but I love it.
Yeah, and you've actually got a piece to go with it, so let's just hear it. Listen up, people.
Styrofoam Steve. Though only has served his purpose, replaceable, discarded, downtrodden, polystyrene fast food takeaway box, saw now that it truly was darkest before the dawn. For he now found, in the gutter, at his lowest ebb, that he had a melancholic, autumnal, leaf-shaped heart. And though it seemed to have been meaninglessly blown to him by random zephyrs and swirling, indecipherable eddies, and though only autumnal and melancholic, and leafily insubstantial, it was still a heart. And from this heart, Styrofoam Steve took heart. And he believed and he dreamed with all his new heartfelt heart that one day he might become, even if a bit bug-eyed and froggy, a real boy.
Yeah, I love it. And for me, it's that incentive, it's that hope, it's it being inspired to then, and that's what I'm saying to you about that now when I'm looking, seeing art, because, you know, there's McDonald's everywhere, and, you know, some people are throwing their McDonald's rubbish, though we shouldn't. And it definitely isn't me throwing my McDonald's rubbish anywhere. Not like eating McDonald's, but anyway, that's by the by. But yeah, it's a way of understanding that you can see those images even in a bit of rubbish.
And I like the idea that that's kind of really accessible to everybody. Working with kids in schools, a lot of the kids hate art. But you've got a t-shirt image here, you know, you've got a picture here. You like it, it's just been stolen from you because their idea of art is to do with the art market, and it's posh and rich people, and there are lots of abstract art that's very difficult to understand. It's more difficult. I love some of this stuff, but it's a barrier for them. And I'd like to open up their eyes to be able to get accessible for that. And I think these whimsical little images with interesting stories to draw them in offer a thing that maybe I'd love to do a segment in schools with kids can get their imagination buzzing and be interested in more complex ideas about art and emotions and psychology and feelings, but just for a simple little game almost. You know, there's a Where's Wally attitude to it. It's, can you see the picture that I meant, and what was it made of? I like that idea that it's accessible, especially for kids. You know, because a lot of very white art galleries just put them off. You know.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I'm hearing you. And not that I'm Nottingham. I do like a McFlurry. I'm going to confess, I do like a McFlurry. Thinking about the interconnection with your work, and you mentioned that in Styrofoam, Steve, where you've got this piece of artwork, this brilliant photography, and you've got spoken word. So I suppose that it almost answers my next question. How often are you doing that? Do you mean, is it that you see the image, you're taking the image, and that's going to be your exhibition? And does that inspire you to then write something? Or does sometimes you write something and then when you're walking along or just looking out the window or busying about around your home are inspired by an image?
It's mostly finding a Styrofoam Steve, finding an image that I think that's just a bit of junk or it's a sheet twisted up, but I can see something in this. If I shoot it in a certain way, blah, blah, blah. I never mess around with Photoshop. I just use a bit of contrast and brightness on my phone, just to adjust the colours on the laptop, but keep that very simple, and that can help to emphasise the features that I'm trying to. Basically, it's like if I can find two eyes and a nose, mouth thing, if I can find a triangle, and then I can tell you a little story, so it feeds in. The image I find, that gives me the idea. Then the writing is basically a bridge that I've seen something weird. If everyone could see it straight away, there's no point in doing it. It's going to be difficult for most people to see it. So I don't want to be a strange, obscure artist who's so clever you can't understand me. I want to share with people. So the titles, either the long titles or the stories, are a way of trying to invest you in what's happening here and draw you in, a bridging for you to, a little bit of words to make you understand what's going on with this image, to bridge over to see with my eyes and just be able to share the thing that I've seen. And I'm leaning into it weird, I know, and looking at these things strange. So I need to encourage people to see it. That's the idea I have about it. So the writing comes from explaining what I've seen, as it were, because it's going to be tricky to see if I just went bang without an explanation. That's the idea of it, I think. So mostly it's image and then words. Although with the little movie stuff I've mentioned about, I've started to do, there's a piece, and then what images can I put to this piece? So that started to happen in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I hear that. That kind of answers my next question about that sort of creative process in balancing your photography and your spoken word. Would you say, are they evenly based? Are you leaning more towards one than the other?
Yeah, I'm just rolling along with how it goes at the moment. I've got a lovely mate, Lee Campbell, who's into the film stuff, and I've shown one film at Kino in Shoreditch, which went really well. Do you know what I mean? And he wants me to do some more. But yeah, I think it basically comes from I'm walking around taking pictures and words, and they just go along side by side and interact and spark off each other. To be honest, at the moment, I'm not writing so many words. You know, get some caring with my mum, and I've not had some time to focus on the words, and I'm feeling that. But I think, broadly speaking, they're all rolling along together and influencing each other, you know.
And so moving on to the photography, what's that like with being challenging and rewarding?
So I suppose the challenge is that I'm trying to show people an image that doesn't quite look like the thing it is, because I'm trying to do a shapeshift. I'm trying to take a picture of some bacon and make it look like two Victorian sisters on a pogo stick that's invisible, silent and steam powered. So that's a bit of a stretch. So that's the challenge, and that's where the words come into effect, in that that's the support bridge to help you come into my mind or into my eyes and see what's going on. And if you're willing to do that, they're the words, the silly titles or the small poems are ways of helping you understand what this guy's seeing in these images, at least. And quite often it's nice that people go, what? And then they'll hear that, now I see. So that's the space I'm trying to find, I suppose. And there's a bit of sort of confusing people, but not too much. There's something nice. There's something like magic in it as well. Showing someone something that they can't see. Oh, but yes, they can. It's bringing them into your world. There's probably a bit of a power play in it, in a sense. It's like, you can't understand that. Let me explain to you. Oh, yes, you can. Which I've not done enough therapy to work out properly. But the idea of just showing you something and then, yeah, it's almost Where's Wally? It's got a very childish bit. And I'm hoping to, like I said, weave those things into something even more. So that's the challenge, to get people to get what this photo is, or what this image is. And the words sort of support that.
And the reward.
And the reward is when it does connect with people. Like I had a little boy, about 7, who came in and just on the random, on the opening night of my little exhibition thing, and he stayed for about an hour and was just, there was a friend of mine there, Jenny, and she just showed him around with the list of names to find and match up to which title went with what. And he was just into it. Then he was bringing up his crisp packet actually and showing me the scrunkles in it. Can you see a face in this? He just engaged, he got on board with it. So that was nice, and coming from the little people is always good, you know. So
I think it's a brilliant concept when you've got a child that can also see not only your work, but can see that they can actually go out and find something themselves, and that's definitely rewarding, because
like getting your idea and then transferring it into his own.
Yeah, definitely. That's really touching. And when you talk about challenging and rewarding, and when you talk about you performing and not sort of playing to what your crowd may be, but for me, I think when I have seen you perform, you definitely are a stand-up presenter, a stand-up performer, because one, I think it's in your nature, because you've got the gift of the gab, and your personality comes out within the whole of your performance. So for me, who I think I know you very well, when I saw you, I really saw you.
Oh, nice.
I really did see. I saw you. So I think this is why the audience they love you, because they are actually genuinely seeing your personality, and that's coming out in your performances.
Well, I think you know that I'm not a performer in terms of up until the last 2 years in nativity play. You know what I mean? The last time, but I'm a bit of a character, as it were, to say cliche. But we all have a mask and perform a little bit, and I'm a bit chatty and a bit jokey and the funny bloke in the pub kind of thing. As I'm very aware that doesn't translate when you know your mates and everyone knows your references or your family to the stage. But I thought, if I'm going to, and I'm quite conflicted about it and embarrassed in a sense, it's definitely at the beginning, but I thought, I kind of got hold of myself, if I'm going to stand there, then there's no point in being, you know, if I'm feeling that, don't do it. You have to get to the point where you can step across and go, right, I'm not just getting embarrassed that I'm being flashy or I'm being large or I'm being loud or because I'm here and I don't want to waste people's time, and there's a bit of ego if you stood here in the first place. So to lean into that and to not be embarrassed about being a bit oi and geezery, because I know that plays a little bit, and then I say try to manipulate and change that around a little bit. But yeah, I found that the performing bit I never thought I would have in me and was embarrassed and awkward, but bloody love it. Do you know what I mean? I really feel it, and I've had some few little moments of like interacting and riffing with the people and ad-libbing. Yeah,
it's genius.
It feels nice. Thank you so much.
It's genius. It's authentic, unique, and it is definitely you. So what's next? We'll talk about future goals. Yeah, what projects are coming out, exhibitions coming up.
Okay, so I'm looking to get maybe a projector and project some of the images so that I can do a live situation where I mix the poetry and the words and the images. I've kind of done a sort of run of that, a pre-run of that, where someone holding up the photographs, my friend Tamsin holding up the photographs and me speaking through as she pulled up different it's a little clunky, but again, at least there was some reaction to the images from people. They were kind of getting it, but it needs to be slicker to do that. That's what I like to follow through with. Keep doing the writing and the photography, and I've started to touch on a few little short films with the images and my poetry, and I would say making a track, but I slow down and play some different bits of stuff and kind of get a track that gives some atmosphere. I think I sent you something that one of the exhibition actually, where it's slightly more than just a slideshow with music and words spoken and the title spoken. Trying to create an atmosphere of the pareidolia people, really, of what's going on with that. Like to sort of mess around more with that and show some films. I've only shown one film in a place at Shoreditch called Kino. Like to show something in and get some sort of real-time feedback off the people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
And when we think about, I'm all about collaboration. So who would you collaborate with in terms of, if you could, who would be on your wish list as an artist, a performer, spoken word? Who would you think of sort of doing a project with?
I was thinking about this when you sent the question. There's like loads of people I could think of to do like I like the way this guy works, what he does, all this. But if I'm honest, I probably think the person who, I mean, I love his stuff, I really do, I'm really into him, but the structure of the way he's worked was David Bowie. And that it was a real kind of changing, eager to learn new things, not to people please. The Let's Dance was considered his album that was people, and yet he still did something more interesting with a kind of pop album, So he was just an interesting, curious, sparky brained person who was great at collaborating and stealing. Some quote about, I don't plagiarise, I steal. And to have pride to take this thing, acknowledge it, and then use it and do something. I don't know. There was something about his working process that I liked. And yeah, I like to keep trying and doing new, different things. And trying to jam them all together and see what I can make out of them. And mixing up the words and the images. Yeah.
No, Bo was an absolute legend. But who, a person being alive?
Oh man, someone alive.
That you think, okay,
there's a band called the Sleaford Mods. And they make me look fancy pants working class. You know what I mean? They're about the rough sort of Middle England white working class men who work in factories and horrible places, and it's kind of how they go, and the violence and the fact that you're in that stuff. If that's all you've got, you become more primal and basic. If you go somewhere very poor, a man walking down the street, this line is walking matters. If you go somewhere affluent, he'll just move out of the way. But it's at this day and this life, you see people doing this all the time, and they touch on all of that stuff in a very aggressive, violent way. That's difficult and confrontational, but represents something that's not represented. It's a kind of part of what I'm from to some extent,
Yeah. And if you could collaborate with someone locally, whether they were an artist into performing arts or spoken word, I'm just wondering if there's anybody that you've identified, or even in your own performance, when you're performing, are there people that you think, okay, yeah, great, I wouldn't mind hooking up with you, or people that have come to see your exhibition when there are other artists coming along? Yeah. Is there something you thought, okay?
There are sort of poets that I've seen that obviously bits of mine chime in, or are different to. I've done one tiny collaboration. There was a friend of mine, Erica Locke, who's a poet, and she's a Canadian with a wonderful voice and accent. She sounds like she hates this, but Roz off of Fraser. And she's got a great voice. But she was talking to me or messaging on the phone, and I basically sent her back going, that thing you said there, you're just talking to me, that's like a piece. And instead of saying that, actually, I think I voice recorded it. And then she must have slightly known what she was doing. But anyway, and then she put it up on her Insta as a little thing, of me reading her words. So that was nice. And her words were relevant to the situation we were sharing about, we both had going on, but were different to the way I would have wrote them. But it was nice to use my voice with something different, That's another thing that's new. I actually have never thought about my voice or have been embarrassed like everybody else if you hear yourself on video. And I've really found that people kind of like my voice, and I've learned to modulate it slightly without being different or changing it entirely. To use it, to have your voice as a tool, rather than saying that's the noise that comes out of me when I need to say words and I don't really like it. That's been really nice to use that and explore it, and people find it as an effective communicative tool, I suppose, and explore that. That's something else I'm enjoying.
I like that, to have your voice as a tool. That is poetry in the making. Yes, indeed. All right, we're on to coming to an end, and we have our
SQ
signature question. And that is, when did you realise that self-care was important, and what changed for you?
Ooh. A sense of it being important, but not really getting there for a long time. And then I think the only real thing that made me realise it was just bottoming out. That somehow, for me, the only thing that jarred me out of it was being at such a low point, pretty much a breakdown, and my dad dying and all that coming together, and maybe your dad's death feels like a different sort of sense of mortality. I can't quite explain that and put that into words, and I'm supposed to be good with them. But something seems to have happened there, because if I look back historically, that's when I started to write. That's when I started to go, almost, you get so low, you think, everything's gravy for me on it, because it feels so terrible. And it's a confidence and a belief. It was so rubbish. Well, sod all the reason why I won't do this, I'm going to do it. Something cathartic and powerful happened within being so depressed, coming out of COVID and my dad dying. It was just something, a reaction happened. I'm not quite sure what, but I like what's coming out of it.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And that's why I mentioned at the beginning about that healing coming from it. Okay, so as we come to a close, what is your words of wisdom? What's your takeaway to our listeners?
Whoa, man. I hate giving advice to people, you know what I mean? So I've made a mess of all this living stuff. But what's changed my stuff up, and it's, I don't know if it's only applicable to people who might want to be creative or something, is that I can now see myself as someone who absolutely needs to be creative in some way, like food or drink, you know? And I'm not functioning or flowing, or it kills me without that. And I've been suppressing that because I didn't even believe it was possible. Didn't have the confidence in the silly little thoughts I had, the confidence and the bravery to begin to look at and work them. I couldn't even write a thing on paper for myself because I'd see it would be rubbish. I was convinced. I kept it in my head. Imagine that you don't have to quite do the work when they're in your head. The little bits that I need to make sharp to communicate with you or someone else, you don't quite pay the attention to it. And it's believe in yourself. If you've got a creative thing, if you've got a creative thing in you that keeps nibbling at you, try and explore it, is what I would say, because that is the thing for me. And that's only me for my situation. But that's the thing that was stopping me being happy or content to some degree. You've got to do the thing you've got to do. And if you've got that thing, you've got to do it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kez.
Thank you so much to my wonderful guest, Michael Adshead. This is the KJ Podcast. Please subscribe. Take great care of yourself.
You've been listening to the KJ Podcast. We'd like to extend a huge thank you to our guest. Post-production editing by Chantal Mattis, KJ jingle by Zenya Adunwo, and voiceover by Benu Ambassador. Finally, as Kaz would say, take great care of yourself.